Hello everyone, welcome to VCIA training course. The theme of this course is Chassis OLT board and special configuration. This course includes the following content. First, V5600X7 board introduction. Second, V5600X2 board introduction. Third, startup configuration. Fourth, special configuration. Fifth, attention matters. I wish that by the end of the course, everyone can understand the feature of different boards in the chassis OLT. Its startup configuration, some special configurations different from common OLT, as well as some attention matters. Now open the first chapter. This chapter introduces chassis OLT V5600X7 board interface and some basic parameter information. This is the table of contents information for this chapter. First, V5600X7 feature. Second, slot layout. Third, CSMU-X701 control board. Fourth, CBG-1601 service board. Fifth, CBXG-08C01 service board. Sixth, CBXG-16C01 service board. Seventh, PDX701 power board. Eighth, FX701 fan board. Ninth, technical parameters. After a brief understanding, let's continue. Let's first take a look at some basic features of V5600X7. It supports GPON x GS-PON combo and can simultaneously register GPON ONU and XGS-PON ONU on one PON port. A business board can have up to 16 PON ports. When 7 business boards are connected, the entire machine can have up to 112 PON ports. In this case, a maximum of 14,336 ONU devices can be registered. It is designed with a fully redundant architecture, supports hot swappable, and also supports cloud management through INS. Please refer to the image on the right, which shows the slot layout of the V5600X7. Slot 0 is the slot for the fan. Slot 1 to 4 is the slot for the service board. Slot 5 to 6 is the slot for the main control board. Slot 7 to 9 is the slot for the service board 2. Slot 10 is the expansion slot, and slot 11 to 12 is the power supply slot. Next, we will introduce different boards, starting with the CSMU-X701 control board. It has a total of 9 uplink ports, including 8 SFP-GE or SFP+, 10 GE ports, and 1 QSFP-28. The 40th GE or the 50th GE or 100 GE port. There are other interfaces, such as 1 AUX, 10 or 100 or 1000 base T port, 1 console port, 1 microSD port, 1 USB COM, and 1 USB 3.0. The available slot to connect control board are slot 5 to 6. CBG1601 service board. It is a GPON board with 16 PON ports. It requires the use of Class C3+ or Class C4+ SFP modules. With SC or UPC specifications for fiber optics and a signal transmission distance of 20 kilometers. Other detailed parameters of the PON port, such as speed, wavelength, transmit power, reception sensitivity, and optical power saturation, can be referred in the table. All business slots slot 1 to 4 and slot 7 to 9 support connection. CBXG08C01 service board. It is a GPON x GS-PON combo board with 8 PON ports. It requires the use of N2 and C+ SFP+ modules with SCUPC specifications for fiber optics and a signal transmission distance of 20 kilometers. It should be noted that due to the support for registering GPON, XGPON, XGS-PON ONU simultaneously, PON speed, upstream and downstream wavelengths, transmit power, reception sensitivity, and optical power saturation. They are all different. Please pay attention to the specific parameters in the table. All business slots slot 1 to 4 and slot 7 to 9 support connection. CBXG16C01 service board. It is a GPON x GS-PON combo board with 16 PON ports. The main difference between it and CBXG08C01 service board is the number of PON ports. Because it has 2 PON chip, CBXG08C01 service board only 1 PON chip. Other basic information is the same. All business slots slot 1 to 4 and slot 7 to 9 support connection. PDX701 power board is a DC power supply module. Requires connection to a -48 volts power supply. The available slot to connect power board are slot 11 to 12. It supports dual power redundancy backup. FX701 board is a fan board for V5600X7. From its side view, it can be seen that it has 6 high-speed fans, each of which can be controlled separately, and supports adaptive temperature adjustment of wind speed, ensuring good heat dissipation effect of the chassis OLT. The available slot to connect fan board is slot 0. This table is a technical parameter table for V5600X7, which includes some performance indicators for hardware and software, like weight, working temperature, power supply, backboard bandwidth, MAC address capacity, the max number of VLONG, MTU, jumbo frame, support hardware host routing, support hardware subnet routing, and so on. Please refer to the table for specific values. This chapter introduces chassis OLT V5600X2 board interface and some basic parameter information. This is the table of contents information for this chapter. First, V5600X2 feature. Second, slot layout. Third, CSMU X201 control board. 4. Service board. 5. PDX201 and PAX201 power board. 6th, FX201 fan board. 7th, technical parameters. After a brief understanding, let's continue. Let's take a look at some basic features of V5600X2. It also supports GPON x GS-PON combo like V5600X7. When two business boards are connected, the entire machine can have up to 32 PON ports. In this case, a maximum of 4,096 ONU devices can be registered. It is designed with a fully redundant architecture, supports hot swappable, and also supports cloud management through ENS. Please refer to the image on the right, which shows the slot layout of the V5600X2. Slot 0 is the slot for the fan. Slot 1 to 2 is the slot for the service board. Slot 3 to 4 is the power supply slot. Slot 5 to 6 is the slot for the main control board. This is the CSMU X201 control board for V5600X2. It has a total of 4 uplink ports, including 3 SFP-GE or SFP+ 10GE ports and 1 QSFP28. 40 GE or the 50th GE or 100 GE port. There are other interfaces such as 1 AUX, 10 or 100 or 1000 base T, 1 microSD, 1 USB COM, 1 USB 3.0. The available slot to connect control board are slot 5 to 6. V5600X2 also supports connecting these service board, as introduced earlier to service slot 1 to 2. CBG1601, CBXG08C01, and CBXG16C01. These are power board for V5600X2. PDX201 power board is a DC power supply module. Requires connection to a -48 volts power supply. PAX201 power board is the AC power supply module. Requires connection to a AC 220 volts 50 or 60 Hz power supply. The available slot to connect power board are slot 3 to 4. It also supports dual power redundancy backup. FX201 board is a fan board for V5600X2. From its side view, it can be seen that it has 2 high-speed fans, each of which can be controlled separately, and supports adaptive temperature adjustment of wind speed, ensuring good heat dissipation effect of the chassis OLT. The available slot to connect fan board is slot 0. This table is a technical parameter table for V5600X2, which includes some performance indicators for hardware and software, compared to V5600X7. Some parameters are the same, while others are different. Please refer to the table for specific values. This chapter introduced chassis series OLT startup configuration and the status display of some boards and indicator lights. This is the table of contents information for this chapter. First, default information and management method. Second, the main control board, state of control and standby. Third, service board state. Fourth, status lights. After a brief understanding, let's continue. by default. The default IP 192.168.8.200 can be accessed through either a UX or VLAN IP. And the account password is admin and expon at OLT 9417 number sign. As can be seen from the picture, V5600X7 supports RJ45 and Type-C console ports. V5600X2 supports Type-C only. Look at the picture. The CLI command show board can check the board information. Active means the currently running control board. Standby means backup board. The board with an multiplied by symbol is the current control board. Pay attention. Slot 5 or 6 main and backup boards when all connected. After the device is started, slot 5 is the default main control board. Now, let's understand the different states of the service board. First, insert means there is connecting the slot. Second, TFTP done means the service board completes the firmware transmission from the main control board. Third, connecting means connecting the main control board. Fourth, online means service board is working. Fifth, absent means non-slot connected. Understanding the status of different indicator lights is also important for us to determine the operating status of the equipment. Main control board, service board, power supply board, and fan board. Each board has different indicator lights, representing the device's power on status, system operation status, board connection status, main and backup control status, etc. The table indicates the meanings of various lighting conditions, which are important for preliminary troubleshooting of engineering problems. For specific situations, please refer to the table content. This chapter introduces chassis series OLT special configuration different from common OLT. This is the table of contents information for this chapter. First, board information page. Second, device board status. Third, select and configure the slot. Fourth, any PON function. Fifth, reserve VLANs. Sixth, the FEC configuration of high-speed uplink port. 7. PON module select. After a brief understanding, let's continue. as shown in the picture. The device information page has added board information, used to view various information of all boards. This page allows to view the current working status of all boards and their ports. Graphic icons and web pages can provide a faster and clearer understanding of the current status of the board and each port. When you want to configure the chassis OLT on the web page, select the slot and then config the GPON or XGS-PON ONU. Using this way to config different slots, different PON mode ONU. When you want to configure the chassis OLT through the CLI, enter the PON port. It is also necessary to select slot and PON. Each PON port of the combo board supports any PON function and can switch PON modes separately: GPON or XGPON or XGS-PON or XGS-PON or XGS-PON combo GPON. When you encounter the prompt in the picture when creating VLAN, it indicates that these are reserved VLANs, including 3313, 3315, 4081, 4082, 4083, 4084, 4090. Where VLAN 4090 is used for internal board communication management. Please note it means these VLANs cannot be configured for ONU1. If the high-speed port and the opposite device need to be linked up, it is necessary to ensure that the FEC value between the two ports is consistent. 40 gigabit uses CL108, 50 gigabit uses CL74, and 100 gigabit uses CL91. Please note 50 gigabit uses CL74, but new hardware is unsupported. About PON module select. XG or XGS slots support the VSOL PON module only. GPON slots support unrestricted brand. It can work with several brands. This chapter introduced some attention matters about chassis series OLT. This is the table of contents information for this chapter. First, universal firmware. Second, primary backup switch function. Third, combo board PON ports optical module limitation. Fourth, customized files. After a brief understanding, let's continue. V3600G1 or V3600G1C or V5600X2 or V5600X7 and V370034XEP, these models of devices have universal software versions. They are distinguished by a boot parameter OLT type. Slot 5 or 6 control boards support switch between main and backup modes. The following operations will trigger the switch. First, manual switch. Second, upgrade version. Third, software restart. Fourth, board power break. Fifth, hot plugging. By default, the PON port optical module of the combination board has limitations and only supports VSOL PON modules. But the GPON board has unlimited modules. If unauthorized modules are used, the system log will indicate that the ONU is illegally registered and cannot be used normally. Of course, you can use the boot key to view and add module SN, as shown in the following command. Please proceed with caution. When using customized files, if upgraded Auto Learn file, it will enable the PON Auto Learn by default. If not, disable by default. It support 3-type language: Chinese, English, and Portuguese. It supports to switch language when all files are upgraded. That's all for this course. Thank you for your attention and listening.